Meles Zenawi's first-year memorial marked on Tuesday at Gulale Botanic Garden. Foreign diplomats and scholars underscore Meles' leadership to stimulate Africans for change. Hello and welcome to this special news bulletin in connection with the first-year memorial of the late Ethiopian Prime Minister Meles Zenawi. With the news, I'm Shmelis Lamam. Former Ethiopian Prime Minister Meles Zenawi's first-year memorial has been marked in Addis Ababa at Gulale Botanic Garden on Tuesday. One of the major events of the day was laying a foundation stone for the establishment of Meles Park and Public Library in the garden. Presidents of Sudan, Djibouti and Somalia and Vice President of Uganda, senior officials from Rwanda, Kenya and South Sudan have graced the event. We'll bring you the details of this news item as we receive it. Meanwhile, attendants of Meles Zenawi's first-year memorial have visited an exhibition revealing the personality and contributions of the late Premier. The visitors have expressed their feelings over what they saw at the exhibition, which remains open for 15 days as of Thursday. Here is their reactions.
Next time, start a big study on policy. It gives very important memory of the departed leader Meles. And as Kenya, Kenya and Ethiopia has very good relations. I was sent by President Kenyatta to represent him because he was out of the country on a long planned trip. But for us to see this, we see the history and where you have come from as a people. And it will help future generations to understand the difficulties of building a nation.
He was very much a natural leader, quite charismatic. I think everyone talks about the intellect and the vision that he brought to the struggle, both to liberate Ethiopia from the Derg, but also to transform the country, both its economy and to sustain its security and its stability.
First of all, the location where this exhibition center is very good to show and express how he was an authority who was protecting the environment. I remember that last year, former Prime Minister Meles Zenawi went to Brazil for the Rio +20. And he was the spokesperson of Africa. So this shows how he was committed. And bringing this center here and showing some pictures of his interest in environment will help people to remember his legacy and continue his advocacy on this issue.
It's wonderful to see so many photos that one has never seen before in one place, and it just builds up the history. With what is important is the people who participated in that history. So it's wonderful to see them at an early age when they were comrades together, sort of fighting. And it's good to you sort of get a glimpse of what it was like behind the scenes by looking at how they are together, and in the meetings, out of the meetings, relaxing. That's people haven't seen that before. Well, a lot of people haven't seen that before, so I think that's very important.
Elsewhere, scholars of Addis Ababa University held a panel discussion in connection with the first-year memorial of the former Prime Minister Meles Zenawi. The scholars said Meles had played a great role to get the country out of poverty. Saddam Mohammed Sani has more.
The panel discussion was held at Addis Ababa University to honor the contributions of the late Ethiopian Prime Minister Meles Zenawi in building democratic system as well as quality of his leadership toward lifting millions of citizens out of poverty. Dr. Tasa Waldhana represents business and economic sector. While presenting his paper on the overall economic situation of the country, Dr. Tasa said the current progress observed in Ethiopia in different sectors is the result of established democratic system and all-inclusive economic policy designed by former premier. According to Dr. Tasso, Meles Zenawi was a mastermind of poor-centered policy that are able to lift up 3 million citizens from poverty.
ሲዎቹ በሚነደፉበት ሰዓት ለኤክስፐርቶች ብቻ የሚተው ስራ አይደለም በራሳቸው
The Prime Minister had direct involvement in different policy making. For example, the country's food security policy was designed by the late Prime Minister Meles Zenawi.
Dr. Tarakeny Adebo is also among the researchers on the panel discussion. According to his research, active participation of citizens is a major factor for economic progress as well as poverty reduction in the country. So he said Ethiopia's constitution is indispensable on embracing unity among multiculture of the Ethiopian citizen.
ፌዴራሊዝም ሲባል ህዝብ ራሱን የሚገልጽበት አስተዳደር ማለት ነው።
Federalism is a system that lets people express themselves freely in a democratic way. Meles was always eager to foster that trend.
The flourishing of different culture and embracing equality among nations and nationalities under the Federal Constitution has been actually realized through leadership of the late Prime Minister, according to Abone Ashagre from Visual and Performing Art College.
The leadership of Meles had a direct relationship towards the improvement of the Ethiopian economy. Besides, his leadership had embraced strong solidarity among Ethiopians.
The panel also recognized that the contribution of the late Prime Minister Meles Zenawi to Africa is paramount.
We have now received the details of the marking of former Ethiopian Prime Minister Meles Zenawi's first-year memorial in Addis Ababa at Gulele Botanic Garden on Tuesday. One of the major events of the day was laying a foundation stone for the establishment of Meles Park and Public Library in the garden. Presidents of Sudan, Djibouti and Somalia and Vice President of Uganda, senior officials from Rwanda, Kenya and South Sudan have graced the event. Rahel Taklihanis reports.
It has been a year since the late Prime Minister Meles Zenawi passed away. His first-year memorial has been marked in Addis Ababa at Gulele Botanic Garden on Tuesday. One of the major events of the day was laying a foundation stone for the establishment of Meles Public Park and Library in the garden. The park, which lays on 950 hectares of land and being protected by Addis Ababa administration, was selected to host the park as it is a green area which goes in line with Meles's vision for green development. Presidents of Sudan, Djibouti and Somalia, as well as Vice President of Uganda, senior officials from Rwanda, Kenya and South Sudan have graced the event with their presence, along with families and friends of the leader. Speaking at the memorial event, Meles Foundation President and widow of the leader, Azem Mesfin, described him as a patriot who aspired for a prosperous nation and better life for Ethiopians. She underlined his and other martyr sacrifices should be remembered by all, as it was paid to make life better for the current and generations to come.
His sudden death broke our hearts, and some of us felt like the promising developments may fade away. But what has happened is that his death becomes another source of inspiration which fuel the commitments. I call upon all Ethiopians to use this memorial as an opportunity to renew commitments to development and democracy, which was Meles' vision.
Prime Minister Hailemariam Desalegn said the legacy Meles left behind has enabled the country move forward with the ongoing endeavors for democracy and development building process. He added the strong institutions and party he helped build proved themselves resilient to go through under any difficulties while they keep meeting the national causes they are apt to succeed.
Meles worked day and night to build institutional execution capacities and also in the green economic development, while he led a successful party and government to establish a widely defined democratic system that has recognized and observed rights of individuals and groups at the same time. He was the champion of the poor and relentless speaker of the African continent on a whole host of issues.
Sudanese President Omar Hassan al-Bashir noted Meles Zenawi was a great African leader who did the best he can towards continent's peace and security, development and democracy. He also remembered the leader's unwavering support to peace and stability in the Sudan. Presidents of Djibouti and Somalia also recognized his immense contribution to his and their respective countries, the IGAD region and the entire Africa in their speeches.
Time will never erase the traces of great men. Meles has left a legacy that cannot be forgotten. Through his actions, he was able to touch millions of people, even beyond the borders of his country. Millions for whom he has drawn a new horizon, full of possibilities, and who know now that the key to their destiny is in their hands and not in the hands of others.
It's very clear to all of us that late Prime Minister Meles Zenawi was a great African leader that left legacy and achievements which we all need to sustain and continue to his legacy as a model for our renaissance.
The event came to an end with Chairperson of Meles Foundation, Azem Mesfin, laying a cornerstone for the establishment of Meles Public Park and Library. Rahel Taklewanis reporting for ERTN News.
In another account, former U.S. Assistant Secretary of State for African Affairs, Jenday Fraser, underscored that Meles' leadership has stimulated Africans like the victory of the Battle of Adwa. Meanwhile, Professor of Columbia University, Nouman Akbar, said Meles' economic philosophy had the potential to avert world financial crisis. Habib Mohammed has more.
Foreign scholars have shared their views of the late Prime Minister Meles Zenawi on his first year remembrance. Former U.S. Assistant Secretary of State for African Affairs, Jenday Fraser, expressed Meles as a leader with high commitment to serve the interests of the public. She mentioned that he was unique from other leaders in pursuing mutual respectful foreign ties in a complicated international relationship.
Especially with the United States, which is often called the most powerful nation in the world. Prime Minister Meles didn't seem to notice that or mind at all. He deferred to no one when it came to setting a course for Ethiopia and Africa's future. Still, he managed to build relationships of mutual respect even when there were policy differences and despite somewhat fickle actions and decisions by the West. I can say that he was a consistent friend of the United States and never let us down. Every American president that worked with Prime Minister Meles admired and respected him. And this is true from George H.W. Bush to Bill Clinton to George W. Bush to President Barack Obama.
She underscored Meles' leadership to bring change in Ethiopia in particular and in Africa in general has stimulated the black world like the victory of the Battle of Adwa.
From a Pan-African perspective, his leadership is important to African and black self-determination, and Ethiopia's independent status has inspired generations of young African and black children worldwide. Similarly, Prime Minister Meles' role in the defeat of the Derg and the transformation of Ethiopia's economy to start the process of the liberation of 90 million people from poverty is as profound as that defeat in 1896.
Fraser expressed belief that Meles' anti-poverty campaign would be a milestone experience to mobilize the youth and the whole Africa for change. The establishment of the foundation would be decisive so as to achieve the vision of the Premier, she said. Professor Nouman Akbar is a scholar at Columbia University. He described the former Prime Minister as an idea generator that would enable the world economy to grow. The professor said Meles did not adopt the neoliberal approach, as he believes that it will not help to ensure Africans' renaissance. Rather, he followed the developmental state ideology, which aims at filling gaps in the market.
If Arthur Meles was the world's economic policy maker, we would have been spared the Great Recession, and that has sent so many millions into unemployment and poverty in so many countries in the last 5 years. the kind of economics, scholarship, the sort of ideas that the Prime Minister propounded, late Prime Minister Atta Mellis, engaged in, and what I would like to label, if you like, if there is a label, as Mellisonomics or anti-neoliberal heterodox economics, is of the kind of ideas that he was engaged in and interested in, is promoted, is the further development, and that type of scholarship is promoted by the Mellis Foundation.
According to Norman Akbar, the fact shows Mellis' political maturity. The ideas of Mellis, listened at various international forums, have power to address the world economies, the professor added. He said the idea of Prime Minister Mellis has got acceptance by international institutions, including the IMF. Professor Alex Duam, director for the Universal Peace Federation, agrees with that.